Hi, my name is Phil, and my wife Amy and I are building a Chesapeake Light Craft Teardrop Camper. After we cut out the rooftop vent and the doors, we could get inside the camper through the door holes, so it was time to install the transom. This task went fairly quickly. In a boat, the transom is the flat part at the back, and since CLC is a boat company at heart, that's what they call the sloped flat bit at the back of the camper below the galley. While the transom was still an open hole, I took the opportunity to do some sanding where the selvage on the edge of the fiberglass tape left a ridge. This was much easier to get to than it would have been later in the build. I also roughed up the edge of the side panels where they would receive a fillet and tape for the transom. At some point earlier, when we had some spare epoxy, we went ahead and epoxied the transom on one side of the plywood. I picked the less attractive side and did a couple of coats of epoxy. In this case, they were pretty close, but one side had a slightly nicer figure in the grain from my perspective, and that side was going on the outside, so I left that bare. It's a little easier to epoxy it on the inside before installing. When we did the fillets and fiberglass on the interior, there was a little bit of cleanup to do in order to get the transom to fit. I did a tiny bit of trimming on the transom so the top edge would meet flush with the galley flat. My dollhouse plane wasn't quite doing the trick, and I wrestled with it clogging up, so I grabbed a bigger plane. You could certainly do this by hand sanding. Using my drill, I cleaned out the holes in the galley flat that had filled in with epoxy, at which point I found the holes drilled in the transom were too close to the edge and would not line up well to put a stitch in. The pictures don't show the problem very well, but it helped quite a bit to relocate the holes. In a couple of cases, I drilled the stitch holes in the transom at an angle to line them up better. In most cases, my solution was to drill a hole a little further down so I could get the stitch in. I also drilled some holes in the sides of the transom and the adjacent panels to stitch everything together and align the panels before tacking with CA glue. The rest should be familiar to you. Tack with CA glue, cut out the stitches, fill it with thickened epoxy, and lay in fiberglass tape that you saturate with epoxy. At the bottom of the transom, the fillet needs to fill quite a large gap, so we needed plenty of epoxy there. Next on the agenda is assembling and installing the rooftop vent bezel, which involves stitching, tacking, fillets, fiberglass tape, and epoxy.
Well, that's new.
And it's the one spot on the camper where I decided to put a little decorative border. If you enjoyed this video, or even if you just opened it to hide what you were really watching, please like and subscribe. And don't forget to click on the bell next to the word subscribe so you get notified when I upload another video. Thanks for watching.
Slideshow. Boring. Losing consciousness.